Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good morning, dear colleagues. I suggest that we start our event. Today we have a discussion, the vectors of technological innovation and development in the regions of Russia. My name is Rowan. I'm responsible for the Innovative Association of Regions of Russia. We have Artem Shardin here, Director of Department for Innovation of the Ministry of Economic Development of Russia. Anatoly Sobolev, Deputy Governor of Novosibirsk region. Dmitry Gorbunov, Deputy Minister for Development, Investment and Commerce of Samara region. Ekaterina, Shapochka, Executive Director of Forum ASC. Denis, Cherkasov, Chief Executive Officer of SBFK Asset Management of Sberbank. And Anatoly Zaikin, Head of the Moscow Innovation Development Center. And the topic today is very interesting. We've been discussing the issues of innovative development of regions, and abroad they also pay a lot of attention to this topic, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development also pays a lot of attention to this. And here it would be important to note several directions that they develop abroad. There is a trend to delegate authorities to regions in the investment policy because regional authority and business and educational organizations, they see and better understand those areas and needs that are on the agenda. Secondly, also, there is a trend to develop comprehensive strategies of innovative development that involve all the stakeholders, and it has to do with the cluster policy, something that is also on the agenda and we pay a lot of attention to. The third thing, this is smart policy mixes. These are the sets of tools, policy tools that are in most demand, particularly in the region. These are the areas that I would like to ask you to focus on. We don't have a lot of time, so I suggest that we start with the presentation first. Mr. Shardin will be the first, Director of the Department for Innovation of the Ministry of Economic Development of Russia. So what is new in the ministry? What areas do you think are the priority areas, and what is the practice that you exercise? Good morning, dear colleagues. I would like to start with this point that innovations, they relate to the economic development of the regions. Usually it used to be that there was a general strategy of development of the regions, and there was a separate part that was innovation policy. And as I see it now, this part of this innovation development tools, creating new enterprises. So if we look at such documents that were recently passed by the government as the concept of development of Inacom, the Tatarstan Republic, there is a big economic area there. There's a Tomsk development, a big region. Now they're about to approve this industrialization of Novosibirsk region. And in the middle of development of these areas, this innovative component, and innovation is in the mainstream of the policy, increasing the big enterprises of the regions, and this is a key area to promote enterprises in the quickly developing markets that has to do with technological initiatives. My colleague asked me what new areas we look at. Last week in Moscow we had the council at the president, and during that session we looked at the program to increase the labor performance. So we are lagging behind our foreign counterparts, and in order to catch up with them, we will need to realize several components. This is organizational innovations that is called lean management, Six Sigma and all others. And on the other hand, this is a technological modernization of the production chain and get into new product innovation and product solutions that will allow the enterprises of the regions to produce products of high added value. And this is the mainstream of development of the territories. So how to approach this? I would like to identify three areas developing depending on the enterprises. The first area is, as I said, that was a complementary initiative. This is developing technologies that will allow us to go to the developing markets. This is unmanned technologies, unmanned piloting, smart energy, new production technologies. How to provide that? And as I see it, it may be paradoxical, but this is to support startups, because new enterprises, they're very dynamic, very flexible, and over the few years we can see that there is a big scale of venture capital coming, and companies see that there is a potential to have this advanced entering of development markets other than to develop technologies within the structural divisions of corporations. If these technologies are as a mainstream of the company, that is possible, but when it's going to new markets, to related areas, so here it is more reasonable to invest in startups that can develop much faster. And what regions can do in this regard? First of all, they can help startups. We have financial instruments to help. So we have a lack of non-financial support that is called business acceleration. There are examples where bidding develops, tenders develop. In Samara region, they've created such a tool that helps to work in this area. And what's important is not just to prepare applications to get grants, but after getting the subsidy, the grant, it is helping the company to increase the opportunities, to increase their potential. So another is the fund of developing internet initiatives and startups that work in the internet. And then after the first round of investment, that's important for this. And this format is very interesting for the region. This second area, this is support of quickly developing companies of medium-sized business. We're working with them with the Russian venture company. This is our partner project. We selected 30 companies that show over the 5-6 years more than 15-20% growth a year. They're very active exporters, and it helps us to develop those who are already successful, to go to the markets, to expand their access to finances. On the federal level, these are the manufacturers from up to 20 billion rubles turnover, but on the regional level they can be smaller. So it's very important to work with the instruments we already have and all the non-finance and finance instruments to increase the availability of different instruments for those successful enterprises, to let them quickly develop. And I think that's what very important is to support export. Russian Export Center helping with this, but in regions we have those organizations as well. This is regional centers that provide support as part of the small and medium-sized business centers. And here what's very important, the complementary mechanism is cluster mechanism that allows to ensure preparation of not just one company, but a group of companies. And the third is the interaction of regions with big enterprises. Last year we updated the programs of innovative development, and one of the key areas was interaction with universities, with medium-sized and small-sized business, and with information clusters. Clusters are the very promising mechanisms. So as a big company becomes a part of the development of the region, we also tune in the system of professional education that helps the big business to develop. And also, as we look at the Perm region, they finance research for their manufacturers in the universities. So cluster initiative is very important for developing the market. Last year we identified 11 cluster leaders in this investment attraction. This door is not closed. We'll be supporting those clusters that used to be supported by the minister as a pilot clusters, but they're still not a priority, and new clusters can also get the support. These are centers of cluster development. Our ministry over several years as part of the program of support of medium-sized and small-sized business, and also non-financial support, we provide this support as well. So probably I finish with this. I also would like to thank RVK that supports cluster development. And I think these two main areas, quickly developing companies and the cluster format, I think for us it's the main priority for us. Thank you very much. Artem said that the program of industrialization of Novosibirsk region, it's one of the leaders, several initiatives, academic park, self-organized association of in the information technology.
The university and the academician universe of Novosibirsk. I'm passing the floor to Vice Governor of Novosibirsk Oblast, and I would like him to discuss with us what is the situation with Novosibirsk Oblast with the innovations, what are your priorities, and generally what are your plans at near term to develop an innovative ecosystem. Thank you. Good morning. I would like to say a few words about the potential of Novosibirsk Oblast, but we're pressed for time. I will just mention several bullet points. We have 45 institutes of the former Siberian department of the Russian Academy of Sciences, 40 sectoral institutions, 24 colleges, over 110,000 college students, and in terms of funding, we're one of the leaders among Russian regions to finance fundamental research. We have also some other advantages. We have background of cluster development, IT, clusters, and some others. Well, we've invested nearly 500 million rubles in that, plus 170 million were delivered by the region itself. We have 4 innovative sites with industrial infrastructure, and we smoothly move along with the Ministry of Economy to the next stage, which was mentioned. We describe this project as a mega cluster, scientific cluster in Siberia. It's sort of a rebranding of the Siberian academic borough, where we've got a lot of scientists there who look into new technologies. We want at the first stage to set up a cluster with the Ministry of Economy, but the problem is a broader one. We want to create an environment for new breakthrough, creation of a scientific region of a global level. It's a major project. We made a good start jointly with the Ministry of Economy, and we need not only financial resources but other resources which were mentioned by the Ministry of Economy. It will be a good kickstart for this project. In the ranking table of the Association of Innovative Regions of Russia, we are among the strongest innovators, and based on 2016 performance, we rank number 5, which is step up after the 11th place in 2015. There is a trend which very nicely describes the innovative ecosystem of Novosibirsk Oblast. To implement the results of scientific research and innovations in our economy, several years ago we agreed with the head of the Siberian Department of the Academy of Sciences that the Siberian Department of the Academy of Science should focus more on the regions. Without addressing the regional issues, the Siberian Department of the Academy of Sciences loses a pillar. The further events proved that we were right, that such approach should have been implemented. In 2014, the governor instructed us to put together a program for reindustrialization of the Novosibirsk Oblast. In a nutshell, that is creation of innovative and technology champions. That's search and creation and relevant follow-up. While the track that was announced by the state, that is creation of global level champions in Russia, should be based on very thorough and detailed activities in the regions. The same like in sports, you don't have champions without mass-scale sports activities. We need to focus on points of growth. Well, effectively, the Novosibirsk Oblast has no other possible route. We are different from other Siberian regions in that we don't have any major mineral resources. However, we rank number 3 or 4 among Siberian regions after Krasnoyarsk Krai, Kemerovo Oblast, and then Novosibirsk economy is the third next, whose economy is not commodity based, and the demand for the innovative ecosystem and what we may call as academic park. Well, there are over 300 residents, by the way, based on 2016 performance. 22 billion rubles was invested. Effectively, this is, in economic terms, it's one of the most significant players in the Novosibirsk Oblast. On top of that, we develop biotechnology park, medical park. That's the first private techno park in Russia. Well, you just name it, it's a long list. The experience of our reindustrialization program means interaction and focusing of all support at a regional and federal level. In 2016, the program was approved after it took nearly 18 months to put it together. It got a green light from our president. The Prime Minister instructed us to set up a working group and to put together a roadmap. The working group is already there. The roadmap has been approved. The working group is led by Mr. Dvorkovich. We had already 2 sessions. Next week, on the 3rd of March, we're going to have another session. We've inspected a number of projects already. And this is an example of our interaction. On our part, we support these projects. They are on our priority list. And the working group gives instructions linked not only to finance, just for your knowledge, of the 10 projects, only 2 require major finance injections. The other projects require just organizational support. And I think that this is an example of interaction which may be of interest to other parties. Thank you very much. Again, we are pressed for time. We have to accelerate. Our next speaker is Mr. Gorbunov, Deputy Minister of Economy of Samara, of the Samara Oblast. Samara is very much different from Novosibirsk region because there are plenty of traditional industrial players while operating in different sectors of economy. Dmitry, what is the current situation in the Samara Oblast in terms of innovative development? There are some budgetary constraints. You have to restructure the existing enterprises. What are the priorities of your agenda now? Good morning, dear colleagues. It's my pleasure to see all of you. Such conferences are very important for us. Sooner or later, we knew that we'll face funding constraints. And from the very start, we created our ecosystem in accordance with these principles that all parties should be commercial parties. If you visited the Sochi 2014 forum, there was an interesting discussion between Kazakhstan and Samara. We looked at two boundary conditions. We said that all the systems should be built on commercial players. Kazakhstan said, no, let's select priority areas and fine-tune the system to these priority areas. The overall performance shows that our approach was better because we don't have any problems to find stakeholders for our ecosystems. All players are in place. It's very important to focus on soft support. We have a huge experience of arranging different events. We arrange over 200 events annually with parties to the ecosystem. And now we are focusing on those stakeholders which are not commercial, those parties who generate knowledge. These are universities. For the next 2 years, we've been actively cooperating with Korolev's University in Samara. They're a key player in the airspace cluster. We follow about 30 projects in the university. However, unfortunately, the university community is very inertial driven. It's difficult to transform them. We thought that we were able to create an ecosystem inside of the university in a matter of a year. In formal terms, the system is there, but unfortunately, people who are decision makers are not yet at the level when they can integrate in the overall values of the ecosystem. Yes, Zhiguli Valley, well, is an interesting cluster. We work also with gifted children. We want to have the Taliati Management Academy to be resident of the Zhiguli Valley, and cooperation with the management academy, well, which has a number of outstanding graduates. Cooperation with this academy will allow us to handle projects effectively. It is important to emphasize that there is not a single region in Russia which can create an ecosystem on its own. When we say that we have this system in place, we do not tell all the truth. The reason is that 2/3 of Samara enterprises are either owned by the government or controlled by the government, and people who control these enterprises are not residents of Samara. Well, to integrate something, you should go to Moscow. Effectively, there on the ground, our companies do not take decisions on the projects which emerge in the ecosystem. And the second area of efforts means growing competitions inside of the ecosystem. People are used that we made an ecosystem, bring it to a corporation and tell them, work in this way. They answer, you can do it this way or this way, but it's not a wrong approach. If you have specialists in an innovative product who can see, let's say, the most interesting thing of that, only then our ecosystem will work. Unfortunately, we don't have a layer of people in our corporates who can deal innovative issues. Innovation doesn't mean handling a current problem. No, it means looking at a broader situation. Therefore, the second area of our activities, we are trying to call attention of our colleagues in the Ministry of Economic Development and RVC that we need a comprehensive Russian system dealing with ecosystem. There is a lot of internal cannibalization. Well, startup tour Skolkovo is an example. They travel across Russia and they try to seduce people from other regions to bring them here. We should consolidate our efforts. We are not yet the states in this respect. We should concentrate competence which complement each other. At recent economic forums in Sochi and other places, we said that we need a common forum which will bring together all interested parties. Oftentimes, if we look at an example of the Zhiguli Valley, the projects which are ripe for the next stage of the financing, they cannot be implemented in our region. They have to relocate to another region. Therefore, there are no horizontal links. Well, we'll have to consolidate projects which may be similar to our projects in our regions. In Novosibirsk and Technopark, we have various projects that are very similar, linked to ENET initiatives, IT technologies inside of major industrial productions. They seem very like each other. Why not bring them together to have a synergy effect? Well, we announced our goal 4 years ago. We have 900 projects from Samara in the innovative base. 200 of them are being developed actively. But it doesn't mean that the other 700 cannot be developed. But it just means that they cannot be developed in this region. We would like to share these projects, but there is no common database of such projects. Cluster approach underlines our principles of social economic development of our region. And all the strategy is built around our clusters: aerospace, automotive, medical cluster, etc. We have IT medicine as a separate sector, and the strategy is fine-tuned to that. Moreover, a regional venture fund, which ended its operations now, we want to reshape it and to split it into several regional cluster foundations. Where we have a motor cluster where we need funding, and we'll refocus that. Another interesting thing, if we look at the application of cluster principles, look at the corporate cities. Taliati is a corporate city. Well, they won a competition for the status of the territory of advanced development. Taliati has received a big engineering center for everyone. Since if it's for everyone, we need a universal CRM system.
Thank you very much. You mentioned venture financing, and it's quite an important matter for our forum. I would like to give the floor to Denis Cherkasov. Denis, and the questions are: what is your experience of working with regions, and what is the trend? What are the trends in venture financing? Do you have a lot of good projects? Are there more or less of them? What issues do you see in venture investment, and maybe there are some approaches to work with them? Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, good morning. I'm head of the company that manages regional venture funds over the last 10 years, first as part of the 3, and then as part of Sberbank Group. And there are 4 regional funds that we have under our management, 3 if to be more precise, and one of them was created together with the Institute of Development and Growth. And over these 10 years we've gained a lot of experience, and together with the whole industry we made all mistakes that could be made, and probably that we had to make. And at the same time, we're trying to learn the lessons, and this is reflected in the results of our work and our activities. So what I can say from the lessons we've learned: how we've worked together with the regional authorities. First conclusion that we've made was that not all the regions, they have the same potential of innovative development. Not all regions have to have the same potential of innovative development. And in this regard, we will need to adjust the scoring system of rating the regions. Because in some regions, especially in those regions when in Soviet time the machine building industry was developed a lot, petrol chemistry and others, they have to develop innovative technologies and develop the innovative infrastructure in their regions so that these innovations would become a source to support regional budget and increase the efficiency of the companies that work there. And secondly, to have people, smart people, because when we're talking about the innovations and how many projects we have, because behind those projects there are alive people, and the quality of these people quite often determines success or no success of particular project. And not only, but also the innovative infrastructure. In this regard, it's not surprising, but maybe if we go to a different region, here I can talk about Tatarstan, talking about this matter and interacting with the venture center, but it was really amazing, outstanding interaction with Tatarstan if we compare it with all other regional interaction. Tatarstan pays a lot of attention to what they invest, how they invest, and not only paying attention and controlling, but they also support locally. Today they announce closing the original venture fund, one of the oldest venture funds, and unfortunately one of the few that actually gained profit, because the rest of them, 22, they're still fighting for profit, or probably they stopped fighting for that and they closed with negative result. But here the work was not only from the managing company, but also from the regional bodies of Tatarstan Republic, and RVC helped us a lot in this regard. And in the regions that traditionally worked with oil production and the heavy industry, we can see that how they work, the building infrastructure. Secondly, we understand that naturally it's impossible to jump over certain stages of development. And if naturally in the region heavy industry is growing or production industry is growing, it's very easy to develop a IT cluster. For Novosibirsk it's a natural thing, but for Tyumen, for example, it's not. However, for Tyumen region, it's natural to become a biomedical cluster. I was absolutely surprised when there was a great case that Tyumen became a world center in developing medicine against encephalitis. So, and what is the key conclusion? Everybody has to develop in the area of their competency, and each region has to look at what they can go with. They shouldn't be copying just the experience, say like Tatarstan experience. Tatarstan had unique resources for such a success. If we look at other regions like Kaliningrad region or Novosibirsk region, Krasnodar region, they have no less potential, but probably with a bit different prospect. And another conclusion that we've made, it's more of a philosophical nature. The state, as we think, should be abandoning the direct investment, because private money does it better. And the state should focus on developing infrastructure and supporting ecosystem. If we had more time with Dmitry, we could discuss who should support ecosystem. Our experience shows that where ecosystem is supported by the regional authorities, this system is developing faster. Not the projects, investment projects. Investment projects should be invested by the private or private government company. Another observation that we made, and I support Dmitry with that, this is a lack of development of venture divisions of big corporation structures. We need corporation venture funds that work with industries where they develop, where they work. I would like to mention here Sberbank as became a center of innovation of financial technologies. It would be great to have centers innovations in petrochemistry, metallurgy, in mining industry. All this can be developed through the mechanism of developing corporate venture funds. We can see how Siemens Venture Fund developed that works all over the world and really absorbing the best technologies from many countries that can be applied by Siemens or commercialized by Siemens. And I think this experience should be shared and applied here in Russia. I would like to interrupt you for a second because everything you're talking about, the corporate venture funds and private innovation, investment in innovations, people are talking about it for a long time, but it doesn't move anywhere. What actually impedes that? So why we don't have private investors? Why we don't have corporate venture funds? What to do in order to resolve this issue? But you know, it's up to your chin already. So it would be great to launch a couple of cases. Well, private business is impeded by the lack of infrastructure. What stops the state and the corporation? This is the lack of will to apply this an initiative. So now there is will, but there are no resources in order to build the systems. Private business would go there, and corporations would go there if there was some financial or taxation mechanisms in innovation implementation. At the beginning, we didn't have enough internal power, so to speak, to make the decision. I don't know what's going on in the government, but how we see it from the outside. So how do they look at it? They look at it as not as investment in the infrastructure. For the government, it looks like they're opening a loophole for the market players. And market players, they also consider it as a loophole. Instead of developing innovations, they use it as a loophole. But for private capital, what impedes them from investing, because the taxation of startups and technological companies in this industry is the same as the taxation of a metallurgical enterprise, but the margin is absolutely different. So that's why corporations at some point they supported this idea, but they realized that they will not get a real financial gain from this. So, and they just said that they did something there just for the check mark. But I think that what's important for us is to focus on creating infrastructure. I'm talking about co-working centers, not real estate, but economic infrastructure, financial infrastructure. Also, creating clusters. If in Tolyatti the automotive cluster is developing, so we need to give an opportunity to the automotive company to get some financial preferences, but in such a way so that they would be controlled. I would like to apologize. We have too little time left, so thank you very much for a good answer. I would like to give the floor to Ekaterina Shapochka, who is the Executive Director of Forum AC. So those matters that we touched on, So, and I think one of those matters was broadly discussed as part of the Innovative Development Center, and we were talking about some methodological recommendations that could be made. And if we're talking about today, what, in your view, what are the valid instruments of technological support of enterprises in the regions? What mechanisms are the most efficient ones from the point of view of the state-owned companies, and what can be the key driver of innovative development of a region? Thank you very much. Do I understand it correctly that we have 13 minutes left? So I will be very brief, giving you the idea of and the point of view of the Government Council and Dmitry Medvedev's proposals were also realized. What we propose over the 6 months, together with the innovation community, with several universities and several regions that are represented here, and I call institutes of development, we're developing a program that we think it is necessary to implement it on the federal level. This is a program of supporting ecosystems and technological enterprise. We called it Startup Russia, and we were insisting on the name of the program because we think that in the variety of support forms and the funds that the regions use to support entrepreneurship and technological entrepreneurship, we think there is no uniformity, a standard that would help quickly develop the measures of technological support, of technological entrepreneurship at the regional level. What we propose to create a program that's called off the shelf. You cannot take the solution from the shelf, and based on the standard that the program has and describes, you can roll out a physical structure or a soft structure, financial and non-financial services. Why we think it is important? First of all, there is a big variety of regional ecosystems, and it's true, and we shouldn't be just ignoring it. But we think that based on the research we've done, we think that there is no enough strength to collect best practices and to have the support base for technological enterprises. And why regions would do it one by one? If we can do it just once for all of them by type and looking at it as a franchise and develop this program this way. And yes, of course, this program, the best place for development of it, this is universities, because universities, this is the scientific research centers, and we can see how it works. But in our view, we have enough resources for that, and I wrote down it already, and we can actually list those resources that regions use. This is Rudnik Fund, this is Cluster Development Center, and this is the money that a Russian youth society invests in this area. Many organizations participate in that. So if we work as economy of scale, and we can either unite these funds or provide the synergy of this business process, and I think we can get a better result. And I can give you an example. For example, in the UK, there is a program that's called Catapult, and getting different resources of funding, they have centers that support scientific and technological entrepreneurship, and they develop different solutions, and they create this regional ecosystem. So they work in the areas that are identified in the UK that are the key areas of development of technology and science, and they create those regional ecosystems and ecosystems at the level of the whole country. And we think that there should be a methodological center on RVK base.
Лучшее место подключить туда.
It seems to be the best place, get involved the best universities, the best regions like Samara, for example, who have already tested those business processes. And we put forth this proposal and naturally involve companies and businesses which are located in these regions, local companies, or government-owned companies, federal companies, who can co-finance and order some fundamental research in these centers. I would like also to respond to what Dmitry said, a sort of service system. Several years ago, when we analyzed development institutions, we found it strange that even in the development institutions you don't have a common database, and sometimes companies receive 2 or 3 times grants from different organizations for the same purpose. And for one of the board meetings, we prepared the system to modernize the situation based on our website. We've got proposals from 7 regions which can be examined and tested for your particular case. And at the end of my presentation, I will say that generally, again, if we unite our efforts, if we rally our resources that we have, resources of the development institutions, there are several hundred of development institutions across the country with a pretty big overall budget. If we combine this funding and channel them in one way, we'll have a better performance. Thank you, Ekaterina. It is a provocative thesis that regions have enough funds for development, even in this situation where budgetary constraints are becoming tighter. Probably Moscow is the only place where this can said to be true. Mr. Zaikin is our next speaker, head of the Moscow Innovative Development Center. Do Moscow businesses have enough funds? Moscow is the largest region. 1/3 of all innovation activities concentrated in Moscow on the one hand, and secondly, from the perspective of economic activity, we see here that the service sector is prevailing here, tourism, but for development of high-tech businesses, in recent years we see that at least major industrial players were leaving the capital. What sort of innovative policies you can outline given the recent changes in the government of Moscow? Thank you, colleagues. Thank you to our moderator. I'm running out of my time. I will be very brief. The city of Moscow we also face budgetary constraint, but we're the largest region, and from this perspective we find life easy and more difficult at the same time. Easy because the main driver of innovation is people with initiative, and we believe that we have a critical mass of these people in Moscow. And on the other hand, we're a leader. At the same time, we set a role model for everyone, and we don't have a right to make a mistake. Therefore, as for the current economic situation, you are quite right. The production is shifted to other regions, to Moscow Oblast and to some other countries like China, for example. However, we see that Moscow remains the center of intellectual resource, the headquarters of many companies. R&D, sales also stay in Moscow. IT sector is rapidly developing in Moscow. Yandex is the national champion, AB, Acronis. There are probably Zeptalab is somewhat on a lower scale, etc., but all of them are in Moscow. We see that the service sector is rapidly developing, and tourism as well. And we see services linked to taking care of the new needs of the IT sector. There is a growing demand, I will call it horizontal infrastructure, co-working networks, open space, etc. And in the production segment, we see a bigger demand for small industrial premises, which can be easily integrated in accordance with the company's needs. And there are a variety of other programs, etc. Programs linked to corporate entities and which are not linked to corporate entities. We have a lot of programs linked to private investors, and such initiatives are supported by the Moscow government. We want to stem from the private initiative and private funding. We support creation of centers of innovative youth creativity, where we can train young children some initial innovation skills. We're a co-financer of such centers. We create a network of technoparks for children, and we also a key program of Moscow is the creation of a network of technoparks. This year, about 27 sites have an official status of a technopark. Importantly, most of the sites are privately owned. We also support systems through the Moscow Seed Foundation, which provides loans on very easy terms to those partners who don't have enough private money. We cooperate in development of two key clusters in Zelenograd and in Troitsk. We also support various events which are arranged in Moscow. We're in a better situation because many federal events linked to innovation are held here in Moscow, and we find it easier to participate in that. That's about all, colleagues. Thank you. We have a minor change in our program. Our speakers have not enough covered the subject of development of the university. I'm giving the floor to Mr. Gusev, the Director of Innovative System Development in RVC. Thank you, Pavel. Briefly, to add to what our speakers said, they quite correctly mentioned the role of regions and the role of federal executive authorities. I wanted to add a few words. I will focus on one premise. It is very important both for the regions and for the federal authorities who try to develop regional ecosystem. It's very important to interact with such key players as universities. In many regions which are leaders, you can look at Novosibirsk, Samara, really. University accounts for a significant portion of the project pipeline. It's normal. And we may say that there is a traditional role which is given to universities and scientific institutions, that's to generate projects and to take care of the technology transfer and to expand links with the industry. People talk a lot about that. However, we'll find new formats soon as the competence centers in universities. We can see that universities have a full-fledged integration into different public programs, but the role of universities should be restricted to that. There may be other formats which are not yet discussed. At some distant future, it is possible to set up venture funds on the basis of some universities. Maybe it's premature to discuss it as yet. Another important thing, and accelerators in universities. A very brief example, Dmitry said that startup Turskolkovsky, when they travel across the country, they consume a lot of projects. There are situations where federal accelerators can work for a regional ecosystem, including via a university, a federal accelerator which makes RVK Generation S, and one of their industrial tracks was taken care of the Urals Federal University. They did it in a very nice manner and effectively. It was a major step in development of the regional ecosystem linked to the strong industry in the Urals. There are very strong metal sector there. It's a format where federal development institutions could invest into the regional ecosystem through university using these tools. Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. We're starting our next session. I would like to thank you all. We're going to cover this agenda again and again. Thanks to everybody.
Спасибо участникам за интересную дискуссию.